because when you wake up in the morning, you get to find us here, bringing to you the updates of every single story and what went down. But yesterday, Edo State governor celebrating 1 year in office. It was drama-filled. It was filled with celebration, pomp and pageantry, like some would like to call it. And Akpako, as they shout, Akpako governor, governor, we was and so on. 1 year in office, achievement is what people are looking at. But one thing that stand out of the celebrations, it had to do with a speech that was made by a very, I'd say, a member of the governor's cabinet. He's also one who has come under fire a lot of times for making some statements in which many have termed to be very reckless. Nevertheless, on this particular day, as a governor of Edo State was celebrating 1 year in office and reading out some of his achievements, looking into what will be done. On the other side, the story that made the headlines is a video you can see on your screen right now. It's got to do with an APC a member, especially in Edo State.
Let's listen to the video and hear what the APC chair has to say.
Edo State is a state that has already settled everything for our president. I want to let the city boys know that our loyalty to our governor is of no break, no gear, no sense. The explanation is this: anything the governor tells us to do, we cannot argue, because he has all the special advisors, all the special assistants that will tell him, we as a party, we have no sense when we're with him. No break, meaning that if he has carefully decided to send us on errand, we have no break anymore. No gear. If you have ever seen a vehicle, most especially a truck, that has no gear and is descending, you know how deadly such a vehicle is. That's what we are as a party in this state. Because we have no sense, the governor has already told us that 3.5 million votes for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must be guaranteed. And it's already settled.
All right, so there you have that video.
Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because this is the same Edo State where Governor Monday Okwewulu said to them that if they don't wear the infinity cap, the ESCO, that if they don't wear the infinity cap, you know, they shouldn't come into the ESCO premises, into the secretariat. Then the President Tinubu went a step further to say that those who don't wear the infinity cap will be suspended. And now we've progressed even further to admit that the members of the party have no sense and they're zombies when it comes to the governor. Again, I would say that loyalty is an ingredient that is necessary for politics. But loyalty also has to be done with some measure of decorum, especially when you know that Nigeria is insensitive. We're very sensitive with how we view our politicians. Nigerians take them with a pinch of salt, everything they say and do with a pinch of salt. So maybe, I don't know who advises them, to be careful of the kind of things they say in public. I know he will say that he was speaking to party faithful and he's not talking to the citizens of the state. But this is the problem that we have, because what he said, whilst he may be able to justify it, that represents how a number of politicians in Nigeria behave, how a number of political parties behave, where we're tethered to the center, to the leadership, and they're surrounded by yes men, people who are unable to tell them the truth when it's necessary for them to call them out on bad behavior. That is a concern.
Let's not forget that this same person in question, Mr. Jarrett.
That's one that I just mentioned now, that said if they don't come with a Jagaban cap, they'll be suspended.
Yes, and he's known to make very, very, I'm trying to look for the right word. He's known to make very, let me use the word, unfortunate statements. statements that shouldn't be made by one who presumes or calls himself a leader. Take, for instance, he also had made a statement at some point that he hates Peter Obi, and he did not hold back. And while he was asked, he said, yes, that he hates him. He used the word hate. And here he is again. He also has a clear statement here saying that that they're zombies. In other words, that they have no break, and so on and so forth. Where I have a challenge is the statement of, we have guaranteed Mr. President over 3-point-something million votes.
How?
I think we have to be careful with this sentiment we're bandying or that's being shared around, especially by politicians. Because when you say you guarantee, the Constitution does not allow an individual or a party, and I stand to be corrected, even by whoever, does not allow for a politician to say, I guarantee you XYZ number of votes.
Well, there have been
especially in a country where vote buying is a major challenge. And I think INEC should step up right now. This is where Josh Amupita should come forth and possibly put a press release out there, putting these politicians on their seat and letting them know that, listen, going forward, nobody should be able to make such statements in public, telling whoever it is, whether it's Mr. President, that I guarantee you 3.5 million votes. One will say it's just an exercise in fruition, you're just assuring the president, or one will say you're just saying it's futility, you're just talking about it rather. But then again, like we say, in a country that is struggling with vote buy, let's be very careful when they come out in public and say, I guarantee you. Guarantee can also mean that you are, in other words,
you're going to do whatever it takes.
Doing whatever it takes to ensure that you provide those numbers.
Especially because we have been bedeviled with challenges like vote buying, voter intimidation, and against the bedrock of these challenges, you coming out to boldly state that we're guaranteeing you how many million votes might infer that there's a possibility of manipulation that can happen somewhere. Again, we recognize that some of these statements are made to party faithfuls, but politicians must be very careful the things that they say, especially when you're the party in power, you have nothing to prove. You don't need the validation of Nigerians. You have nothing to prove. So we must be very, very, very careful. But then again, this also reflects our culture, our Nigerian culture, the culture of, again, sucking up to those at the top. Yeah. Where it's like, and we see it in homes where you say, you can't speak to an older person, you can speak back. These are cultures that are being challenged now, where younger people can say, no, I don't agree with that, sir. Or I don't agree with that, ma. You can question and ask a question. We can't carry that mentality. And if that generation thinks that the kind of politics that they run, where it's like the word of the governor is final, it's law. He says that the governor has advisors so that the rest of them have no say, meaning that they will leave it for the advisors. But that's not entirely correct. Yes, he has advisors. But even the president, with all his advisors, has made a number of mistakes that Nigerians have pushed back on. When the clemency, the presidential pardon situation happened, did the president not have advisors? Was it not considered an error in the way the manner it was handled? Nigerians kicked back, they listened, and they went back, reviewed it, took into consideration all the complaints that Nigerians had made, and reflected it in the second list that was put forward. So it's not enough to say, oh, he has advisors. We're not going to, all of us are going to be zombies. We have no sense when it comes to the governor. Whatever he says is law. I beg now. I beg now.
And let's also just to add, I think Mr. Jared Tenebe is actually trying as much as possible to secure his spot. Just 2 weeks ago, we also heard that there's a scuffle, even within the APC, that he shouldn't come back as chairman. Just 2 weeks ago. And there are also plans we hear, to equally tout the chairmanship elections. So his job, as it were, according to some stakeholders in the APC, his job is on the line. So you would also wonder why someone would come out and make, such statements as well. But then again, we have to be very careful, and that's what we're highlighting here. We don't want to push a narrative that, in other words, will presume that no matter what happens come 2027, we have to secure a certain number of votes, and if we do not get it, we have to go by all means necessary or possible to ensure that we get that. But let's see what Nigerians are saying in reaction to this particular footage that we just brought to you. Upgrade PR number 1 says, I thought they said Edo ain't Lagos.
No, let's say the way they typically say, Edo no be Lagos.
Edo no be Lagos. What on earth is going on in Edo? 3.5 million voters. What is 2.6 million registered voters in the state? Now, this is what we're talking about. Let's go on to another tweet quickly. The Testament podcast. Not we are. You should personalize it because achieving 3.5 million votes in a state that has less than 2.5 million registered votes and less than 2 million active voters. Is this structure of confidentiality not a testament of zombinism? Zombie people, that's what he says. Well, zombie. I don't understand, but then again, I get your point. Let's see, we'll have another tweet very quickly. They are busy politicking while the nation burns on the insecurity with little or zero governance. It took a foreign power intervention to look like common sense is anywhere near the table. Ayodeji Kayode. Ayodeji, thanks for this tweet. It's a conversation we have always had here on News Central, especially on Breakfast Central. That's this program. I will keep highlighting it, politicking or looking at the issues. So it's true what they say. If you join APC, you automatically lose your sense of reasoning. LOL, Edo people don't enter one chance. This one said they don't get sense. And he actually said that. He said they don't have sense. They don't have break. That anything the governor says, they will do. You know,
let's look at the updated voters register. Are we done with the tweets?
Yes, we're done. We're done with the tweets.
The updated voters register in Edo State, according to Dr. Anubum Onuoha, the State Resident Electoral Commissioner of INEC, who made a presentation at the State INEC office in Benin, said that Edo State, going by the updated voters register, has 2,629,025 intending voters. This was sometime in 2024, September 21st. You know, this was in 2024, right? So if we have, and then they said that prior to the recently announced CVR in the state, the total number of registered voters during the 2023 general election was 2,501,081 voters. So 3.5 million from where?
So the candidate voters registration shows that you have less than 2 million voters who are active, but you have a total of about 2.5. You see, I hope INEC sits up. Whether we like it or not this morning, we're waking up with this conversation because it is a very critical conversation that borders on the either one, the impunity or pure or punity, whether you like it or not, whichever you want to put it, of Nigeria's electoral process. So if INEC keeps folding its arms and allowing those who have a loud voice and mouth to keep screaming down that they can in other ways circumvent the system and adjust it to suit whatever they think. For instance, how would you come out and say you're guaranteeing 3.5 when in true sense you don't have that number? So INEC should be able to put out a statement or speak to them and say, listen, going forward, nobody should be able to pervert or allow these kind of things to go on in their own party. I'm also expecting the presidency by now. They should have been able to say, listen, in a democratic setting, we do not in any way encourage. You understand that you love Mr. President. And so this is why I expect the SSAs to come out and talk. Because if it were another party that was doing this, I'm sure other parties too will speak. So I'm expecting them to come out and say, listen, as a party, we do not endorse. I think that's the right word, not condemn, but you do not endorse that party faithfuls go ahead to guarantee XYZ number. And I think the president should also highlight in his speech that if we are doing well, the people will choose.
Again, to mention that, like you just, piggyback off the last statement that you made. If you've done great as an administration, you don't need to do too much.
Nah.
People's votes will reflect that you've done well. Again, this is the same Edo State that is talking about politics and Asiwaju Cap and talking about just being suspended if you don't come wearing Asiwaju Cap. Whereas 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago or so, that we talked about the young girl who was kidnapped and Harrison Gwamishu and his team had to intervene to get her rescued. We don't know the full details, but what they could say was that the Edo State police officers security agencies were not cooperative, and we didn't hear a statement by the government. We didn't hear a statement by the APC leaders in the state. If you are going to be doing politics, nobody's saying you should not play politics, but at least show that your politics has a human face. When there are issues that are bedeviling the citizens, speak up, lend your voice. It's not pick and choose. Since you want to, throw your weight behind the governor, nobody says you shouldn't. It's important that we all support our leaders. But while you're doing that, do things the right way. Anyway, let's move on from that conversation to our next conversation. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, has said that Nigeria's constitution forbids religious persecution. And that we agree. But whether or not religious persecution is happening is another conversation. Let's take a look at this video.
Nigeria's constitutional commitment to religious freedom and rule of law. All the answers are in there. And this is what guides us. And this is what shows that it's impossible for there to be a religious persecution that can be supported in any way, shape, or form by the government of Nigeria at any level, be it federal, be it regional, be it local. It's impossible. And our laws are there.
Well, if you're one of the many Nigerians who feel that there seems to be a lot of explanation that's being done or carried out from the presidency, then you may be right. Well, there you have the Minister of Foreign Affairs there highlighting again to the international community that, listen, we are not a country that stops or tries to hold back and forbid other religions from carrying out their either forms of worship or any way they want to carry it out. We're not such. And I think it's very pertinent that the minister did that, breaking it down and showing it in public. However, Olive, I have a problem.
What is it?
And yesterday night, I decided to do this, and let me run it through to our viewers. Let me run it by our viewers, rather. I decided to do that. I decided to take a list of the things that have been done since President Donald Trump of the United States made that statement. Yesterday, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, welcomed an archbishop. And the pictures, guess what, are everywhere. He welcomed a bishop, a man of God, let's put it that way, and he came into the presidency, and there were pictures, photo ops, shaking hands, they had a conversation and so on. And it got me thinking, why this? Why now? Because a few months ago, the people were crying, help us. They are killing us. Wasn't that the right time to have met them? Remember that pre-elections, we had some people who were dressed as reverend fathers and so on. I don't know if you remember. And they were all dressed. They did not need any consent from the president. Neither did they have to meet him. But we saw them actively trying to ensure that they sway votes and participate in the elections, whether we like it or not. We saw those images. We saw the videos. And people kept asking, what's going on here? But let's leave that aside. That's one. Two, we've seen the minister, the video you just saw, where he has gone and is explaining clearly, which is also good. Also, we've had cases where the Senate is now talking on this issue, and it also caused a serious uproar yesterday, where they discussed deeply about how the situation is becoming tough, is escalating, and so on. And you also ask, wait, what's going on? What's going on? But these people have been crying about the killings for the past 2 months. So why didn't they sit down and really discuss this? I can go on and on and on and on and on. Then you have the SSAs. Everybody is now granting 1 or 2 interviews, which is good because it's part of public relations. You need to clear the air and so on. Oliver can go on and on and on. My point is, let's not always wait till the water runs dry before we try as much as possible to start filling up our drums and buckets. Why don't you do it even before then? Because that would have been the clear story before we got to this level. And that's the truth.
Okay. There are many things I think about when I think. So, by the way, that was a conference in Berlin where the Minister of Foreign Affairs was speaking about this. And I re-echo everything that you've said. The fact that we're now showing, we now feel that pressure to show that we're
the military is showing working.
Tolerant country. Yes.
There's more, military is showing more working now.
The question is, does our constitution allow for freedom of association, which implies our freedom of religion? Yes, it does. However, is there a reality where there are people who are being persecuted as a result of their faith? Can we completely ignore that there's a reality of that? It might, and I know that we keep going about, back and forth with the government. There's a book that I think one should read. It's a book by Archbishop Benjamin Kwashi. It's a book by Andrew Boyd, rather, but the title of the book is Neither Bomb Nor Bullet, Benjamin Kwashi, Archbishop on the Front Line. And in this book, they detail the story of, this Archbishop who has lived the reality of persecution. And the persecution is not necessarily because he's male or anything. It's because of persecution from his faith. He's persecuted as a result of his faith. So we cannot sit here and deny that there aren't people who have experienced this. You speak to the people in the middle belt of Nigeria, and this is a reality for them. And I've said this time and again, how I've been in fellowships where someone raised a prayer point one day that, they started attacking our community again last night. Can you please pray? Is there terrorism? Yes, there is terrorism. Nigeria is battling terrorism. Are there people who are suffering as a result of their faith? Yes. Why did we have to wait for the United States to make a statement for us to take it as seriously as we're taking? These are the questions that, show, again, the heart of the government and make it feel like people don't necessarily believe the sincerity and the political will that the government claims that they have in fighting terrorism. But let's, see what Nigerians are saying, and then we can move to our next story. Again, it is a really, really sad development. Josiah Uche says, the Nigerian Constitution also contains the right to the citizen's safety and security, the right to a fair judicial system, and the right to basic human rights. I do not think any Nigerian will attest to this being observed in the country. That is what Josiah Uche says. The next tweet we have regarding the story, can we please put up the next tweet? Ogechukwu Onye Life says, country's constitution forbids religious persecution, which means the country can cast a blind eye to the killings of Nigerians for religious purposes? Question mark. Let's move on now to our next. Do northern Nigerian Muslims, where he come from, agree that Nigeria has a constitution? Why did they institute Sharia to override the constitution? Why is he saying one thing and practicing another in Nigeria? Wasn't Deborah lynched under the same blasphemy provisions of Sharia law? Why do these people tell lies in the name of their God? Well, that is what Fortis says. Yet, Nigerian constitution recognizes Sharia laws which permits death penalty for blasphemy. Emeka Oraneche says regarding this. These are the tweets, and these are what Nigerians are saying about it. Again, if we as a country want to show that we genuinely value the rights of Nigerians to freedom of religion, freedom of religious association, and the right to safety and security, then we must act like it. We must prioritize the safety, security, and welfare of Nigerian citizens. As an offshoot of some of the things that have happened since Donald Trump and the United States stepped into the arena, we have our next story. President Tinubu has declared emergency in security training schools. Recall that there have been an approval of 30,000 new police officers, but he says that these new officers cannot be absorbed to dilapidated structures. The governor of Edo State, Peter Mba, his counterpart, Dapo Abiodun, and others who are a part of the committee that are championing the revamping of these security training schools, have said, and then the governor of Edo State, Peter Mba, said that we should be clear that it's not an offshoot of Donald Trump and the U.S. entering into the arena. I don't know why he needed to explain that. It's obvious that the reason he needed to explain that is because Nigerians will not believe. Because all of a sudden, there's a sense of urgency
let me drink my tea,
that we have seen regarding insecurity. Anyway, they say that these security training schools, some of them are dilapidated to the point that their roofs are leaking. They're in the most deplorable conditions, and that these are not conditions, they are conditions unbecoming of a security agent. So they're working on revamping these institutions so that at the end of the day, they can ensure that they can get reputable security agents who will go through this. But again, please be reminded, like the governor said, it's not as a result of the United States threat.
Right on. I have no comment.
Okay.
The only comment I have is why.
It's important.
And why, the why I'm asking, which is WHY, stands for so many things. were we not aware that the security, Nigeria security apparatus, architecture, name it, was actually shaky? Were we not aware that even the soldiers, the foot soldiers, had recorded many videos crying and asking for help? All of you recall that this is going to be 3 months where we've come on this show and we've said the best way to solve security is to declare a state of emergency on insecurity in Nigeria. What that means is the government can finally say, you know what, while we're working on the economy, we're trying to do the new tax reform, we're doing this, everybody pause, provide the basics, but now let's focus on security as number one. I need everybody, all governors, see, insecurity is our agenda, let's deal with it. And the truth, anyway, we'll go on a quick break. Did you
see the update about somebody who says that a Niltech, I saw it on social media, that the Niltech had family members who had come to Nigeria. One of them was visiting Nigeria 15 years.
15 years, and then he was
kidnapped. He was kidnapped for 80 million.
For 80 million naira. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. So just do us a favor. Feel free to go on our YouTube space. You can drop a comment or two.
I can see the comment of Mokmi Chukwuemeka and Annie Chinedu Brown. I will take those comments when we'll come back from the break.
All right. Welcome back. Breakfast Central still on and live. Thanks for staying with us. Don't forget that you can drop a comment or two when you go straight to our social media platforms.
And I think we should actually start by taking comments on social media. We're streaming live on YouTube at News Central TV, and we'd like to take some of your comments and see what you're thinking about this. Good morning to Mokmi Chukwuemeka. Annie Chinedu Brown says that Nigeria is the only country where our president or our past is better than our present. I think that's such
that's a deep one
thing to say. I'm going to read the comment. Say Nigeria is the only country in the world whose past is better than its present. Hence, every bad president will be adjudged better than his successor in Nigeria. Imagine Buhari being missed because ... And then he goes further to say, it takes Trump's tweets for Tinubu to think of appointing ambassadors. It takes Trump's tweets for the government to sit up to his responsibilities. It takes Trump's tweets for the wicked ruling us to react to the insecurities plaguing our country. Except you are complicit, you will not see the merit of Trump's intervention. And Mokmi Chukwuemeka agrees. He says, everybody's on their toes. Is Donald Trump their mate?
Olive, you know, I already highlighted some, and I said I will not be able to continue because if I continue, the list is endless. Part of it is the ambassadorial list. We've been waiting for this.
We have been speaking about this.
Talking about this.
Where did the fund miraculously come from? I thought they said there was a funding problem.
Yes.
Where did the fund miraculously come from?
All of a sudden. And last year, remember that we had ex-ambassadors, former ambassadors who joined us here on the program.
Yes.
And part of the conversations they had with us was they're wondering why there's so much delay. Anyway, now back to the insecurity issue we're discussing as well. Declaring emergency insecurity trading schools. We've highlighted here, and I keep saying it, I think until insecurity is actually looked at from a state of emergency point of view, that's when we would actually get it right. But as long as we keep treating it like this, the way we're treating it, then I feel we'll keep battling with it headlong. Yesterday, there was also an article in one of the newspapers, and the article made very key, very deep sense. The article highlighted the fact that the president is working on multiple reforms, from the tax down to the infrastructure and so on. But the highlight of that article was that if insecurity is not dealt with, these reforms will not be enjoyed by all, but only a few. And that's true. Take a look at it. If you don't fix the roads, let's use the Lagos-Ibadan, Binyore, you fix these roads, but there's XYZ percentage of kidnappings on that road. People will not enjoy. What people will remember is, that road, if I pass there. So the article highlighted that, listen, while you're doing these things, handle the most important one, which would also impact on how many investments will come into your country. Right. I can bet you, we read it in the front pages of the newspaper yesterday, right? That in as much as Donald Trump has made a strong statement, whether we like it or not, it inadvertently as well will affect how many investors will be looking at Nigeria again as a beautiful bride, because you'll be wondering what's really going on in that country.
In fact, Monday we talked about how much we had lost with our stocks. Yes, it was a 0.25% margin, not significant enough to shake the economy.
Yeah.
But with consistent threats like this and the possibility of an invasion, we don't know what the long-term impact might be. We've seen Chad closing it, Chad that is dependent on us in some measure, closing its border, and Chad is just one of the many countries that can decide, you know what, we don't want to inherit the US. Nobody wants to inherit the United States of America as an enemy. But back to the conversation about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu mandating the team to reform and rehabilitate a number of
security
these
training schools,
training facilities for the Nigeria Police Force, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, as NSCDC, and other international security agencies. This was prompted by concerns about how outdated and dilapidated these buildings were. The president and his team recognized that modern training modern security personnel requires modern facilities. Now, in particular, one of the institutions that they visited reported dormitories built in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Joe, 1940s, leaking roofs, inadequate lighting, missing chairs in classrooms. And then the question is, if the building is a building that was established in a country that we don't even have as much of a great maintenance culture, a building that was set up in the 1940s before my mother was born, how efficient do you think that building will be to, in 2025, produce top-class police officers? The building is also reflective of the kind of training that they get. This is why a police officer will stop you, harass you, collect money. We talk about the quality of training that they get. How can we guarantee that the training is up to date when the building that they're staying in is not even up to date? So there are many layers to look at in this conversation.
Olive, in a psychological world of every individual as a human being, your environment impacts heavily on how you reason, how you think, and how you process thoughts,
Absolutely.
how you live. If your environment is unkept, dirty, it's inhabitable, there is no way that you would function properly.
This thing you just mentioned, even when you get home.
Even your house.
Yes, when you get home and you see your house is clean, your bed is well lit, there's something it does to you.
Or there's power.
Yes, but when your house is a mess, coming back home and you don't know, is there light, is there no light? That already puts you in a very uncomfortable mood. But let's see what Nigerians are saying about the rehabilitation. The committee has been tasked to return with a report within 30 days. But do Nigerians believe that this is not powered by the US? Let's see. Temitayo says, Mr. Donald Trump, we see your hand. If for nothing, our clueless, incompetent, sleeping leaders seem to be awake. God bless you, sir, Temitayo says. And let's move on. This is a strategic masterstroke if executed correctly. No, this is a strategic masterstroke if executed correctly. For years, we've seen police brutality, unprofessionalism, and corruption, not just because of poor pay, but because they are the very institutions meant to instill discipline and ethics were dilapidated relics. Fantastic points there. Harry says, every time there's failure, they announce another state of emergency. What we need isn't more committees or grammar, it's results. After almost a decade of APC rule, insecurity has only worsened. You can't keep repairing what you keep breaking, Harris says. Still talking about the institutions, this is long overdue. You can't build a modern security force in outdated facilities. If executed well, this could be a major step towards real reform, Davy Cruz says on X. At this point, it is very clear that the President of the United States, Trump, is now the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We don't agree with that. Come on, stop that. Come on.
Nigerians, if you have any problems from now on, simply report your issues to Trump and it will be solved with just a tweet. Now, wow. No. But then again, this is really, see finish. But just to come back and re-highlight that point, that it's important that this is done. You can see the skepticism with which some of the tweets reflected their disbelief even in the commission and the fact that a committee was set up to bring reports in 30 days, because we've seen committee upon committee in Nigeria. Bear in mind, earlier this year, a committee was set up to ensure the implementation of the Orsay report. They were given 12 weeks. What's the update of that committee?
Was it earlier this year? It was last year.
Was it?
It was last year.
It was last year, my goodness.
It was last year. This year is wrapping up. The committee was also, there are many committees that were set up last year. We've not seen anything.
So Nigerians don't want to see a government that says it's going to work. We just want to see results. We don't care about the process. Just show results. And I think that this is a step in the right direction. And I agree with them in terms of if executed correctly, this is a step in the right direction. It would be great for a police officer who is being recruited into the Nigerian police force to stay in a decent apartment, to get up-to-date training. You know, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps members.
Don't worry, I'm having goosebumps while you're talking.
You don't believe that this will happen?
No. My goosebumps is a reflection of what is simple.
Do you know that
and
even
so possible?
Do you know that even NYC camps? NYC camps. I think NYC camp was one of the reasons I hated NYC, because of, again, the NYC camp apartments. And I mean, this is NYC will say that this one not concern them, but should they say they are paramilitary?
Do we derive joy in just living in pain? But
I think that there needs to be an overhaul of our security agencies, military, paramilitary, and the institutions. And please, this reform, while the argument of whether or not NYC is paramilitary is going on, I want to appeal
that it should
extend to NYC, because the NYC camps, Joe, I hated it.
It needs a complete reform.
In the morning at 5 a.m., people are having their bath outside because nobody wants to use the bathrooms, because they just have like tiny 3-4 bathrooms for the whole hundreds of people. I said that it felt like NYC was punishment for going to university.
Olive, we want to clearly commend the president for this move. But we've seen that the president has made some strong moves. It is now left for it to be fully executed and completed. So we're hoping that this complete overhaul of the security training school, because whether you like it or not, why we have to commend this idea is that it still trickles down to what we have been saying here on this program, that the only way to tackle insecurity, I'm not a security expert, but of course I do know what I know, that the only way you can tackle something is if you place your, let me use Falsi's language, if you place your focus, if you focus on it headlong and say, listen, I'm going to deal with this, without one word, distraction, then you would be able to achieve that. So if the presidency and all the 36 governors say, listen, we've all come together, let them sign a pledge that for the next 8 months, all governors, whether your state is not having any case of insecurity, it doesn't matter, join the force. All governors are...
If your state is not having... I don't think there is any state that can come out to say that they're not impacted by the result of insecurity.
That's it.
We are all touched by it. Because when insecurity hits the food basket of the nation, it trickles down.
Exactly.
Now,
some states might want to say, anyway, in our states, there's no insurgency.
Nobody can boast about that.
It means
it affects everybody.
The entire country, everybody pledges, and I hope the government is listening. This is just one of the best ways to go. Everybody pledges, everybody puts their foot down. All the governors of the 36 states and the FCT come together and say, let's do this. And in doing this, you will find out that when they tackle this headlong, I was saying something, take for instance, Lagos State. Lagos State is dark. Lagos State, I'm sorry to say this, but it's the truth. As a journalist, we drive around and we put some scripts and stories together. Some parts of Lagos are completely unsafe. We know what happens in Dirty December. There will be a lot of people who have their own inferior, or I would say ulterior agenda, because you know that people will be moving around town. This is the time for Lagos State. If there was an agenda for security, which I believe Lagos State has, we're supposed to start seeing patrol vans, security vans moving around town.
The same way where before elections, some days before, we see a show of force, we see the army moving around to let us know that if you do anyhow, you see anyhow. So we need to start seeing that, because there's going to be a high inflow of foreigners, which is great for us, because it's also high inflow of FX for us. We also will see that it's business. It's boosting our tourism. Dirty December has become a cash cow for businesses, for SMEs. I think it's a great idea. But we must be able to guarantee people security when they come into the country. And we do that by ensuring that Third Mainland Bridge, we have policemen around. In certain parts of Lagos, there are policemen around, and that the Agberos, the menace of touts, of Agberos, starts to be dealt with.
They are kept in their place. And finally, just to add, while I would say a good move by the president on the training schools to be revamped, is because you cannot also solve an institutional problem without dealing with it from the grassroots.
Charity begins at home.
And the grassroots is the training schools.
Absolutely.
And you've mentioned some buildings that are since 19... If a training school building was last touched, or was last... what's that word? Was last... renovated, let's say maybe in 1993. Who will renovate the one that they built in 2000?
So just to add to that, while we're working on renovating the training facilities, let's also ensure that we're renovating their curriculum, and we're bringing them up with more, or we're training them with modern best practices of what current realities are. Sometimes textbook training is totally different. You know, it's totally different from the reality. Let's talk about the major issue that Nigerians have to battle with, which is police brutality and corruption. These two major issues are issues that we hope will be handled headlong in the training to ensure that we stop the profiling of Nigerian citizens. Our young people are not always criminals. The fact that someone wears tattoos or dreads, my younger cousin is around, and I've tried my best to not, I feel like I've been a mother hawk around him. I make sure that we're going out at the same time and he's in the car with me, because I'm just nervous about him going out alone and he doesn't even have dreads and any of all those things, which are not wrong in themselves. But because unfortunately a number of uneducated people or uneducated officials will see that and think automatically you're a fraudster.
There's so many positives to this story that we're taking on Wake Up Conversation, and we'll say it's a good move by the president, and we hope that, like they say, hope is not a strategy, but we do hope that since the call has been made, the action should actually follow the swift nature in which the call has been made. And hopefully, Olive, if they get it right, if they get the grassroots right and sort it out right, it would in any way trickle down to what we're going to see. In other words, I also look forward to a time where you have graduates who are enrolling as police officers. Yes. Because when they go to these schools, if they're fully revamped, factory AC fitted, no chalkboard, but we're talking about touch screen boards, everything, we can do it.
You know when I know that we will have made it?
We can
when
do
we
it.
can see young people on career day, what do you want to be? We'll see children saying, I want to be a police officer, and their parents will not say, God forbid. That's when
why do we go to New York? We go to New York and we see a police officer, we're like, oh, damn, this police officer is so cute. This is so packaging. And you say female police officer, she's like, hi, how you doing? And you're talking to her and she's like, oh, she speaks well. She tells you, oh, I'm a graduate of this, I schooled in this. And you're like, oh, wow.
Because they are paid well.
They're paid well.
It's not like a backup
They're taken care of, insurance. This can be done. I can list, Olive, if we continue this statement, I will not leave here. I can use 2 hours to talk about this particular story because there's a lot. But then again, that's all. That's what we're going to take on Wake Up Conversations. And just to highlight again that China has waded into the U.S. invasion story. China says that United States had better watch it. They should not in any way try as much as possible to intimidate Nigeria. But let's take a look at the tweet. There you have it. On November 4, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning chaired the regular press conference. The journalist said, according to reports, U.S. President Donald Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, on October 31 on the grounds that Christian communities have been threatened in Nigeria. Anyway, he went on to explain everything which you know and I know. But this is what Mao Ning said in response. He said, as a comprehensive strategic partner of Nigeria, China firmly supports the Nigerian government in leading its people to a development path that fits Nigeria's national realities. We oppose any country's interference in other countries' internal affairs under the pretext of religion and human rights. We oppose the wanton threat of sanction and use of force. That's what Mao Ning said. And Mao Ning, while speaking, is also speaking for the entire China. Don't forget that it's a foreign ministry spokesperson, and as a foreign minister, you have the right to also reiterate what your country stands for and what they do not stand for. But then again, this reminds me of the great legend and the song of the late Fela Anikulapo Kuti, talking about human rights. Can you give us human rights? They won't give us human rights. And a lot of points in that song which kind of like highlights what Mao Ning has said. But whether we like it or not, let's see how Nigerians are reacting to the Chinese statement. But while he made that statement, yes, this is it, he got a response from
Riley Moore.
Riley Moore said, President Trump is absolutely right to defend our brothers and sisters in Christ who are suffering horrific persecution and even martyrdom for their faith in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. China will not dictate, so he fires back at China, our foreign policy to us, and we will not be lectured to by a communist autocracy that recently arrested 30 Christian pastors for their faith and throws ethnic minorities in concentration camps. Olive, everybody has a skeleton somewhere in their cupboards. And that's where Riley M. Moore has gone to pick out one.
But yes,
talking about the communist autocracy, which, of course, China practices, and not highlighting it that it's quite different from democracy. But then again, Mr. Bishop says, Boko boys and bandits were killing Nigerian Christians. You guys never issued a statement or do nothing. Now you're forming friend of Nigeria. This is Mr. Bishop speaking to the Chinese foreign minister there. Let's see another one very quickly as we move to wrap up Wake Up Conversation. Cannablog says this is exactly the kind of voice the world needs to hear right now. Nigeria is a sovereign nation, not a playground for foreign politics or Western hypocrisy. No country has the moral right to threaten us with sanctions or military action under the guise of protecting Christians. The insecurity in Nigeria affects everyone, Muslims, Christians, and people of no religion alike. We appreciate China's balanced stance and clear respect for Nigeria's independence. That's what true partnership looks like, not intimidation, not propaganda. It goes on to say that the United States should focus on its own internal divisions instead of trying to dictate to other nations. We, the people of Nigeria, reject any attempt to divide us along religious lines. What we need is cooperation, not conflict. And that's why, some have said they need support. So why haven't you waged a war against China to save the 30 pastors and other minorities thrown in camp? Are you perhaps scared to face China, or the lives of the Christians only matter if they are Nigerians? Very deep and thought-provoking question. Ayo Shogunro says, do you hear the irony in your own statement? The US is free to interfere, but China should mind its own business. The audacity of the white male. Nigeria must solve its problems by itself. You can recommend solutions, but you have no more legitimacy than China does to intervene. Spot on, whether you like it or not, in that statement. But let's wrap things up with this one. But if you think for a second, why the sudden show of love and affection? Why shift focus to Nigeria right now? What changed? Are you all sure there isn't any motive or something? Everyone is talking about the motive behind the current issues between Nigeria and the interest, the sudden interest of the Western world and community. What are your thoughts?
Well,
feel free to share with us as well.
I mean, the reference he made to what happened in China is there were actually arrests.
Yeah.
And these arrests were for people who were deemed to use online platforms to transmit religious material without authorization.
Which is
and China has been very recently, they've been very, very particular about regulating the kind of information that's been transmitted, particularly when it comes to issues of faith. So they don't necessarily have the same position that we have in terms of our religious freedom. Yeah. Right now, I can wake up today, if I decide that, I want to start a church, I can build a church, get the necessary
You're free to go
registrations, no restriction of sorts, but that's not the case in China. So, anyway,
I'll give an example. If Nigeria were to be China, Nnamdi Kanu trial would not be ongoing. It won't. Because the moment he came online and put on his microphone and said, we need this, China would have clamped down immediately. The same goes for other men of God who may engage in practices that are condemnable. That's China for you. Hence why you see them, they manage their own social media space and so on and so forth. And
they allow to the extent of it being regulated. So there's a registered Protestant church. So wasn't
that the same thing the governor tried to do that before you preach? Let me see your document.
Yes, that was in Niger State, right?
No. Was it China does not.
But that's kind of what they're trying to implement. So again, when we are picking practices from several countries, we must also understand: do we have the same kind of laws? Do we have the same system? Yeah. Is Nigeria a communist state? That's in reference to you saying someone was suggesting that we also start to regulate religious activity to the extent of registering every religious institution. I understand the concerns of why they would do that.
Olive.
Oh, yes, I know.
It's going to happen. A time will come. I mean, for those who are close to their Bible, it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Let's take this final story. I am not in support with the fact that they had to display their images, but then again, I do hear that it's part of the process. DSS, Department of State Services, has dismissed not one, not two, but 115 personnel, and they've warned against imposters. Another Trump decision.
Why are you not in support of them showing their pictures?
Okay. Well, these are the pictures of those who have been dismissed. Olive, I think if you dismiss them, it's good you just maybe possibly read out their names. But then again, I also hear that it is part of the practice so that you warn the public in case anybody in this image or these images walks up to you and still carries a DSS card. After all, we've seen impersonators who would impersonate the DSS or the EFCC. But then again, in a tweet, which hopefully we can put that tweet up, DSS says 115 personnel have actually been dismissed from, of course, the DSS. And there you have their images, their names, their faces. You can quickly identify if your brother is there, your aunt is there.
So it was very important for them to do this because, according to the DSS, some of them were still using, you know, the identity of the DSS to commit fraudulent activities. So there was impersonation, claiming to be a DSS official. If tomorrow, you know, News Central, any of us here decide we're no longer continuing our relationship,
we'll drop everything that
News
belongs
Central,
to News Central.
But
if you, like Olive now, use it to be...
Why do you say me? Why do you not use yourself?
No, let me use you now.
Why?
Because you are a living example.
No, why not you?
I can't use myself. I'm the one talking.
I'm a proud News Central staff through and through. Please, don't allow HR hear this joke. Let's not joke.
Let's use Gbenga. Gbenga is not here.
Gbenga is not here.
If Gbenga decides to now use News Central ID card.
After not being a staff.
After
let's not use Gbenga. Let's not use Gbenga. Let's use another show.
Okay.
Do we use Jasiri?
The ladies in Jasiri, they now, no, can't use Jasiri.
Let's not do that. So before, okay. But you get the point. Really.
But you get the point.
The point is they're trying to prevent people from being defrauded by personnel that may claim to be part of the DSS when they're no longer part of the DSS. And they say that this dismissal is part of the internal framework to ensure that they are kicking against indiscipline, fraudulent activities. It is total in-house sweep and clean of the DSS to ensure that they can give us the best quality of operatives within the Department of State Services. Let's now see what Nigerians are saying about this before we head to our top stories. Dayo says, now that their identities have been made public, shouldn't the service be concerned about terrorist groups trying to recruit them, given their extensive training and deep knowledge of the DSS operations, data systems, and internal secrets? This is valid. Dayo says, if you people really take secrets seriously, you won't spread their face on the internet. They have sensitive information and they are no longer trusted. Crypto Expo says. I posited a few weeks ago that failure to state the reasons for their dismissal may leave some Nigerians with no option than to be lied to, and I'm happy you confirmed that some persons are still doing business with them. I urge that the Commission state the reason. And the next tweet, this is the kind of internal renewal Nigeria needs across all sectors, one rooted in integrity, professionalism, and accountability. Big ups to the DSS leadership for setting the pace. These are what Nigerians are saying. 115 compromised personnel. I beg, how will I take swear them in as personnel? Feel like saying a palm oil, then rub for their heads, them take swear them in. This is alarming. That's the tweet that we have there. But, Joe?
I don't know. Like, I'm going to take one statement from one of the tweets that's exposing their faces. But then again, like I said, that we do hear from a former DSS personnel that is also part of the process. And ordinarily, you would find companies that would also put out a staff's image on the newspaper, National Daily, and say, this person is no longer a staff of so. Do not.
Yes. Now,
warn in public.
But then the question is, how do we find the line between that thin line between defaming them and protecting your business? Because if a staff of News Central no longer is with News Central,
you don't put it in the newspaper,
and then you put it in the newspaper, you give off the impression that they did something sinister, they committed some form of crime, embezzled or stole from the company. Absolutely. And if you did that, the person can decide, this is detrimental to my image. Another company can decide to employ me, and when they see this, they will no longer employ me, so they can sue. Unless, of course, the company can prove that they really had something sinister against them. So really, it's very difficult to find that fine balance.